G'day guys, this is CW from the land down under, and here we are once again for another developer update. And joining me once again is the one and only Armeanio. How are you, mate?
Pleasure to be here. It's been an interesting week.
It has. We had a smooth initiation, I guess you could call it, of EIP-27 at block height 777217. I actually caught it live on a live stream, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, things rolled over smooth. That's just the result of proper testing. That was in development for the better part of this year. And so it did take a bit of time, resources. We wanted to make sure that miners could vote, and Alex spent a bit of time building that feature in, a little bit different than he originally anticipated, so it slowed us down. Okay. And so now we go through a adjustment. We're going to have another drop off of 3 ERG here in a couple days. And, whenever you have this type of, let's just say, emission change, the same thing happens in Bitcoin. You always have a rapid drop in profitability, and things need to rebalance. Hopefully markets adapt, miners adapt. There's a tendency, at least in halvings, to force things to the most profitable miners, and those that have higher carrying costs either sign off for a bit or take a little bit of pain for a little bit. But proof of work rebalances over time. We've seen that. So short-term pain, long-term gain. I definitely have to respect the miners for being willing to sacrifice their profitability for a little bit. And hopefully, as the new exchange that we're working with completes their integration, comes online, we're going to open the market a little bit, and hopefully that helps naturally correct things. But
it's just a matter of finding the market finding that equilibrium again. It'll come in time.
Yeah, proof of work is pretty interesting as a mission framework, because it's pretty self-healing in terms of carrying costs and miners setting the market. So we'll go through a period where our profitability definitely is going to drop because less coins are being emitted, and over time that'll balance. And hopefully, as that does, we continue to build, and once things correct, we're in a nice position.
Yeah, I think you said it nicely on Twitter this week. It's just up to the ecosystem itself to start, or the ecosystem in the community to start bringing on some value and repay the miners.
Yeah, and I think we're well on our way, to be honest. I see a lot of interesting things coming out of GetBlock. I see a lot of core infrastructure things that are kind of in development. Rosen bridge is on its way. Dexi's on its way. Oracle V2 is on its way, and that's really going to be foundational for DeFi on top of Ergo.
Yeah, add in Node 5.0 and away we go.
No.
All right, thanks very much for that little recap. Let's jump in and do the developer update. So to kick things off, we have Apex Theory, who is back after having a little bit of time away. So just doing some bug-related sort of work with the batch Merkle proof side of things, and then also we'll have the PR sent through in the next couple of days, and then just reached out to Kushti as well. So just to let him know if there's any tickets that if Kushti would like him to look at. So welcome back, mate. Thanks very much for joining once again.
Apex back on the node. That's good news.
Yeah. And moving on, we've got Lato Pixel. Do you want to jump on?
Sure. So he's been building an application called Schedule Erg Web. And that has to do with encryption, where you can take a website image link or URL and create NFTs that are encrypted in terms of their tag, which is pretty cool to see. I'm curious how that develops. That's whenever you get into encrypted messaging, people tend to like automatically, I don't know, assume the dark side, so to speak. But it's actually a really cool little tool you put together.
Yeah, it's got a update on Twitter. It's pretty cool to go and see there and see it all sort of come to action. It's pretty cool. So moving on. Oh, here you can see the example there. So if you want to see it, jump on the Discord and you can see the little video that he's got there. And moving on to Green Hat, another big update with him and his team. So Tim L has updated the box scans for V2 to use the token ID for Oracle config, implemented the gold Erg data source. That's cool. Got to the bottom of an issue with finishing the peer discovery in Chrome. GSEC added a commit hash to the Oracle core version, implemented the update for contract type, and then his progress itself finished and merged the update to contracts v2.0a, so the reward tokens in the pool box, started the manual testing of bootstrapping and running 3 oracles on the testnet, just making a list of issues to fix, and started with complex scenarios testing on the CI, and building Ergo chain sim crate with a blockchain simulator similar to Ergo Playgrounds, but for tests. That's pretty cool. It's a big update.
Yeah, that is a big update. You know, the Oracle V2 is getting close. Looking at what they're putting together, you know, the gold Erg price is going to be fed into Dexy. So looks like those two things are developing pretty much in parallel. You know, I do know that they're implementing testing, and so we'll see, you know, how things go. Sometimes things go well, sometimes things need a little work. So we don't really have a firm ETA yet, but sometimes that's just how development goes.
Yeah, it's all sort of part and parcel of the process, isn't it? Oh, here we go. On to Mr. Starfelger. Here you go, mate.
I think you got it right the first time, to be honest.
Stop second guessing yourself.
That's all right. The wallet app looks like he's done some small bug fixes and improvements. Spent some effort on the wallet app to desktop, which is pretty cool. I'm looking forward to the desktop version. I did see a sneak peek where he was playing around with the cold wallet feature through a webcam, which is really neat to see. I think the camera side itself may be a little funky, just depending on, you know, your desktop setup. But from what I saw, it works. So that's pretty awesome. The Ergo payment portal, he mentioned last week, has been completed. That's pretty great to see. The more we see web payment solutions, that type of thing, it just makes Erg more adoptable as a P2P currency. So I hope those of you out there that are running a business would consider, you know, accepting Erg and or SIG-USD or any of the other tokens on the Ergo blockchain to perhaps get a little bit of extra, you know, customers in your door. We'll see. I think people would be excited about that. Looks like he's also proceeding with the Mosaic plugin system. So he's implemented some actions for Ergo Auth. Wrote a tutorial for it. That way people can integrate it, and he's asking for feedback. So those of you that are curious, hop on and be sure to give him feedback.
Yep, most definitely. Exciting. Can't wait for the desktop version. On to MHS SAM and Rosen bridge. So they found an issue with Cardano's asset fingerprint during the tests and also found a solution. So they're just fixing that up. And the integration test is under progress. In the coming days, he will provide some more tangible results. So that's another big one as well.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw, but as of when we're shooting this a couple hours ago today, unfortunately, the one bridge got exploited for like 100 million. So that kind of brings the total hackable amount on bridges this year pretty close to $500 million, which that's insane.
That's crazy to think about, isn't it?
That's a lot of money that potentially is disappearing. So I'm really excited to see Rosen come out. Hopefully we have better assumptions. You know, that's why that particular framework was put together.
Yeah, having that two layer sort of, or 2FA sort of layer set up with the watches and the guardians. It'd be interesting to see how that sort of comes out.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it sets a new standard.
Yeah, and moving on, we've got Captain Nemo. Do you want to jump onto Nemo?
Sure. GraphQL, which is a alternative explorer, has come out in its base version. They went through a full code review, refactoring. They're reviewing some additional PRs. They're adding a TypeScript package for the client-side static typing. It looks like he's also adding Ergo auth support for EIP-27. I do know that Nemo's playing around with the idea of actually building a alternative front end as well for that Explorer. So we may get a alternative Explorer that's powered by GraphQL.
Sweet.
And side note, I know that Yoroi Wallet is pursuing GraphQL on the Cardano side, and Nemo actually is gonna, everything's open source, so it's gonna actually go to them and hopefully support Yoroi as well, which would be pretty cool to see.
Yeah, that's awesome. It'd be great to see them back up and running well. Just on Ergo Auth, do you want to elaborate on what that actually is for the community?
I probably shouldn't right now because I need to read up on it, to be honest.
No problem. So moving on, we've got Coutelier. So they're building out a website for Comet, being able to connect to Nautilus and post some memes there. So also looks like you can tip for memes through the Ergo tip bot. That looks pretty fun.
Yeah, they're always busy, Comet. I'm pretty impressed, actually, for, usually these dog coins don't tend to actually do much. But actually, Comet is, they've submitted an EIP. They've built out on Sigma Valley. They've now are putting out the website. So they actually do a fair amount of development for kind of the class that they're in, let's say.
Well, they jumped onto GetBlock as well.
Yeah, it's impressive to see.
It's open source as well, so jump onto the Git if you want to have a look at what's going on there. Saturgo. So they've got version 0.0.3 released in an hour, but I think it's actually released now as of when this video will go live. So the program's 50% smaller. That's great. I think it was up around 300 meg or something when I tested it, so it was quite large. The node operations, so setting the API key and public address, open config file, unlocking public, setting the public address, etc. Transaction history, that's pretty cool. Setting to require password for sending, selecting which addresses to send from, a price chart, 24 hours, 7 days, etc. That's nice as well. Optimize selection for multiple addresses, selecting change address. More tasks are done in the background to not freeze the UI. Token icons, navigation bar, content adapts with width. The keyboard navigation on numeric repetition. Improved node downloader, and fixed an issue where multiple entries of the same token in one transaction was allowed, but broken. So that's a really big update. It's great to see that full node sort of come to life.
Yeah, he's definitely done a great job taking community feedback and getting to work and pushing it. Even price charts and wallets. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'll have to jump on there and download this one and check it out. From Kushti, the man himself. Do you want to take, Alex?
Sure. So EIP-27 rolled out smoothly. That was something that I know he did a lot of checking his homework on before we got to.
Yeah, a lot of stake there.
Yeah, there's a lot of stake there. Looks like he's pretty happy with it. Last I talked to him, So the activation height went through. We're going to have another roll off of 3 ERG, which was our standard emission schedule. So we'll get through those 2 bumps, and then I think we'll see a little bit of time, get a reset. He's working with pool reward calculations and payout. He posted on the forum. It looks like he's focusing on some improvements and fixes in the P2P layer. He's putting together a new reference client in the background. We're also going to be launching a 5.0 testnet in a few days. So we're hoping that community developers hop on there and play around with 5.0, try to break it, let us know what the problems are. And hopefully we iron that out, and that's going to be our big next network upgrade. I know that Dexy is on his mind. He's been writing and polishing that, talking with Scala Hub in terms of the bank actions, and continuing that we're playing around with market-driven emission retargeting of tokens, which would be really cool to see. That's never been done in the space. Yep. So having that new framework as a emission schedule is really interesting. I think it would go really well in a subpool where, it's not something we've seen yet, where miners have the ability to, let's say, mine something besides Ergo from Genesis.
Yep.
And I'm really looking forward to when that comes out, because that's going to be really a different dynamic than what we've seen so far, because you already have like existing markets and existing holders, and having something that's launching from Genesis via a subpool, I think is a really big step in the direction that is more sustainable for mining.
Yeah, I can't wait for the first project to be able to do something like that and be able to have the rights to say that they were the first to market with it through a subpool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and especially if we can figure out the payouts from a smart contract to where potentially we set it up like the block rewards in ERG, where a certain emission portion went to the foundation, or in this case, like a development team. It would prevent them from ever being able to dump on miners, because they'd essentially receive rewards at the same time as miners, the same way that Ergo did. And it's just a better way to launch, in my opinion. It's painful at first, I won't lie, but hopefully as we build out exchange partnerships, I've already been talking about the potential for flat rate costing for native tokens, and trying to open doors for our ecosystem, that if someone wants to do that, at least we can give some cost predictability to different projects.
Yeah, and also ties into the uncertainty around regulation and all that sort of side of things as well. So yeah, there's a lot to play there. Just on 5.0, in regards to testing, with that new costing model, will developers have to update their contracts or anything like that?
I don't think there's going to be any changes on the back end. Should be pretty smooth. I know that Morphic has been playing around with that actually since last summer. So 5.0 is really not in inception. We're actually pushing into testnet when it's already been pretty mature. We have actually done a few performance tests, and we're going to see some significant improvements. I'm sure that once we get more on that testnet, we'll have a more accurate analysis of what exactly that's going to be when it goes live. But yeah, it's definitely going to turn up the system.
Perfect. Sounds good. Here we go with Louis Vatra. Another big update from the Ergo pad side of things. So they've got staking live for Ergo games. So as expected, Ergo games staking is about to be bootstrapped. Padilla contracts. So they're making good progress in mapping out the different types of contracts and tokens, NFTs that are needed. We'll continue to work in the coming weeks before starting implementation in Ergo script. Padilla Web 2.0. Padilla will have its own independent core living on the blockchain. That's interesting. which can be accessed through the CLI or the PDL website. So the website will have some Web 2.0 additions on top of the core that aim to improve the user experience. Keeping up to date with the proposals and voting, allowed for discussions on proposals. So good progress is being made there. That's great to see, to hear. Nft Sale Contract. LGD is working hard on making an awesome setup for on-chain randomized NFT sales. I think the community's hanging for something like that.
Yeah, it's going to be big.
Yep. And Unspent have experienced with a big drop in the Explorer performance when it comes to addresses that have lots of boxes on them. Often a large part of those spent boxes, for example, on the Ergo USD Oracle, the spent boxes are interesting for historical statistics, but in most cases they're only interested in unspent boxes. So Leaf is working on the database that holds unspent boxes and making views and the indexes support better for ergopad.io. That's another big one as well.
Yeah, that's needed.
Yeah. Thanks very much for that, Louis. And on to Dimitri.
Sure. Looks like he's still working on the setup of the new backend and database for Sigmaverse. Having a few issues there. Unfortunately, we run into that from time to time where, part of the Ergo team is Russian, and so they've kind of been rugged by MasterCard and Visa. So they've found a workaround solution. I'm sure that's in progress.
Yeah. Oh, you may as well keep going with Morphic.
Sure. It says, looks like he's been sick. So, I hope he gets his rest, feels better, gets back on his feet. The Ergo node, he's synced with 5.0. Looks like he's also pushed some PRs towards 5.0.1 with some cleanup. He's actually taken out quite a bit of old code for the 4.0 version, and he's added the new AOTC code, and then now he's kind of refactoring that. Looks like next he will continue to cross-compile Sigma to update it with the newer version of Scala. And he's going to prepare a Ergo branch with Sigma 5.0.1.
Exciting times.
Yeah.
Moving on, we've got PGR 456 with the Alternatives Explorer. So just in general, still deciding on a name to register for the domain. Often the hardest thing for a developer to come up with. On the back end, just finishing up, setting up some infrastructure with a database, the modable load balance for full nodes. Currently syncing the mainnet into the database. I finished implementing around half of the API endpoints, and on the UI, still working on the API endpoints, and we'll use the front end of the official Explorer until we get something else sorted out. And I hope to have everything finished, the whole API in the next week or so, and to start working on the UI. It'll be interesting to see how that all comes together.
Yeah, me as well. After wallets, the Explorer was probably the dependency in our ecosystem. That was the main bottleneck. And I'm really happy seeing multiple different new instances and new languages, new setups being developed in parallel, because that, it takes a single bottleneck and suddenly we have multiple paths available.
Yeah, so there's some more instances of the existing Explorer. Got the GraphQL side, and then also something like this with, I think it was Golang from last update. He's writing this in.
Yep. Yeah, and once you get new tools and new languages, it allows developers to hop on and pick up, things that they're comfortable with, which accelerates things significantly because there's less of a learning lift.
Yep. So we've got Dimitri here. Maybe we can have one UI for all Explorers. Reaching out to provide some help if you need that. Prag Maxime, you'll take Prag.
Sure. Looks like he's working on optimizing the node syncing header and block selections download from the newest version they've been playing with. It should prevent things from getting stuck and make the syncing process a lot more fluent. That's where we're headed. That rapid sync, once it's pretty solid, is actually going to make a big difference in terms of spinning up a full node or perhaps even running off-chain instances. I'm really excited to see that. Just you minimize computational power, you accelerate things, and people don't have to be patient. People like that.
Especially in crypto. I want it now.
Yeah. Now. Yeah, no, it's going to be good.
Yeah. It'd be cool to see how that sort of interacts on a Pi, something with as little resources as one of those little things, and see how the sync goes. Moving on, we have Cheese Enthusiast. So on subpooling, they've changed how blocks are selected for payment and sent to the contract. So they're now processing 5 blocks at a time to help with scalability. They ran into some issues this week in regards to growing pains. I'd just call it that. They grew quite fast and just had to implement a couple of changes there.
Sure.
Just working on the stat upgrades and just general stability. On the UI side of things, they're filtering blocks by pool, along with more accurate hash rate stats for all pools, and onto Plasma, still porting to the undo and main structure from Sway database. Also thinking about how to support the level database AVL implementation, so users have more options to experiment with. And once the above 2 happens, just like to do a little bit of a cleanup for the code and testing. So it will be ready for a very basic beta release. That's another big one as well.
So what happened this week? They scaled too fast, and then all of a sudden the back end was getting beat to hell and all that fun.
Yeah, so obviously with the release of the Neta pool, alongside some very high traffic, things got a little clogged there. Everything on the payout system worked fine, but just the UI side got a little bit clogged up, and the back payments for those block rewards themselves as well. So everything was on chain and running, but yeah, obviously with the amount of influx of hash rate and everything like that, it just they're a little bit sort of subject of their own success. Yeah.
That's the funny thing. That's a good thing to see, and it's also a really good learning experience, not just for GitBlock, but for anybody else. Whenever you see that type of rapid adoption, you got to be ready for it. And sometimes backends are just overrun.
Yep. So I know that they've done a lot of work on all their sort of instances around the world as well. So all the infrastructure for the where you connect to and everything along, they've basically upgraded everything. It's good to see. Yeah,
I'm sure they'll be ready for next time.
Yeah, when Noodle Pool.
Yeah, it's gonna happen.
Moving on to Ilya from Sigma Valley. You take Ilya?
Sure. Looks like he's implemented the renting smart contract. So now users can rent a plot from landlords for a period of time. That's pretty neat to see. During that time, it looks like they can upload models and change details.
Well, that could be interesting. You rent a plot and you come back and your building's reconstructed.
Renting is a dangerous thing when you get the wrong tenant. That's just how it goes. Looks like with DAppStep, they've improved the website. Looks like it now supports multiple recipients. It's useful for building transactions like payment to NFT owners and royalties to artists or airdrop transactions. I was pretty happy to see that. Actually, I think DAppStep is definitely one of those things that is going to make people's life a lot simpler. And I love those type of simple tools that just make testing easier. Looks like he's also done some tweaking to the documentation. Then it looks like Node Share. He's exploring a solution that will allow people to run Node and Explorer instances to cut expenses by providing access for a fee. That's actually a very great idea. I certainly would help with decentralized infrastructure. So I'm really curious to kind of follow that, see what happens. Just hardens the network.
Yeah.
Looks like he's finished implementing a proxy service that works as an authentication layer for users to access the Node API. And he's going to share that soon. Looks like he's talked to a few people who are willing to run the first pilot. So that's great to see. And expecting, said, feel free to DM if you feel like paying 5 SIG USD to a node operator to access a faster private node explorer instead of using the public one. That will encourage more people to run a node, support the network, and just upgrade the user experience. And I'm curious to see what would happen if miners hop onto that. I know there's a lot of solo miners out there that are probably already running a full node. It's not a bad idea if you're a solo miner to get in touch with Ilya, see if you can spin up the Explorer and potentially make a little bit on the side beyond what you're mining.
Yeah, a little bit of an extra revenue there. And obviously benefits the ecosystem itself. Scala Hub. So this week just mostly worked on implementing the DEXI extensions that Alex proposed. And then you can catch up with the contracts, the working contracts you can see there. Just not much documentation yet. So yeah, it's awesome to see. Have you had a look into that?
A little bit. I know what's coming. I haven't seen the specifics of his latest feedback, but I know that those two, DEXI's kind of opening a new framework that I think we're going to see more unique implementations of in the future. I really curious to see how it all comes out. I think it'd be good to do like a deep dive once we get closer to launch.
Yeah, sure. Sounds good. So moving on, we've got MG Pi with Ergo Sapiens. So they're just continuing with testing. Testing intense chained transactions. They will start on the NFT front end soon. Eagerly awaiting the NFT assets EIP to be finished and implemented. And then with ErgoPi, so bulk minting has an inherent problem. Too many output boxes will freeze access. So that they've written a solution there. So to consolidate NFT tokens in increments of 50. And the code just needs to be refactored before release. So, yeah, they've got a TX there that they've spent debugging on the testnet. If you want to jump on there and have a squiz. Moving on, we've got Night Owl.
Sure. So it looks like they've made a faster responsive front end. They're working on a fax page. And they're almost done with the liquidity page. Looks like on the back end, they've improved the code for the Oracle scanner and their RNG service. They have a troubleshoot issue with the Explorer backend. They've set up and completed a CI/CD for their front-end dev server. They've designed a voting contract that can be used to redirect assets through a democratic voting system. That's going to be interesting to see. Any smart contracts can support voting by simply adding a reference number, and then voters can select where the assets will be sent during the voting process. And it looks like, you did a great interview with them.
Yeah, it was fun. It was actually kind of strange because I just
you saw the NFTs.
Yeah. I'm the only one live there, and they are just kind of talking to a couple of pictures. So I was obviously have to respect their right for privacy. What they're doing is a little bit somewhat gray. Controversial in the whole.
Let's just call it gray
area. Yeah.
Doing it open source, allowing the community to be the house, I can really respect that. But yeah, I saw that and I was thinking he's just talking to like cartoon NFTs. Poor guy.
Yeah, no, it was a little bit strange, but yeah, it was a great interview, really fun and really insightful. It was good. So once everything's back up and live, I'll reach out again and then we'll do another one.
Awesome.
So moving on, we've got a non-real.
Looks like most of EIP-34 feedback has been reviewed and applied. Looks like there's a bit more work, and then he'll push for another round of feedback. Looks like a few more front-end pages have been implemented, including the wallet and auction pages. Progress has increased with new dev joining their team, which is great to see. Back-end integration for new pages is in progress at the same time. The Ergo team progress is pretty good. After EIP-34 changes are done, looks like they'll have more time to onboard the new dev. So really excited to see the auction house, finally get some updates, and Ergo team is really going to be an interesting tool as well.
What's Ergo team? I haven't heard about that one.
Sure, it's going to be like a simpler, more user-friendly version of the zero knowledge treasury. It'd be a simple way to put it.
Awesome. So moving on, we've got the Sentient NFT. So on their Sentient chain update, they've just fixed an assertion error that was occurring when they were trying to connect client nodes to the master node. Currently troubleshooting a timeout error the client nodes are having when connecting to the master node, and also working on the website.
Yeah, it's an exciting project to see what they can do. Merged mining is always something that's kind of fascinated me in terms of building kind of side chains on Ergo.
Yeah, I was reading about that throughout the week, so I started going down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's always an interesting concept. I'm sure the miners will be happy if we see an implementation that's pretty friendly to them.
Yep. So moving on, we've got Yasha with ErgoDex.
Sure. Looks like they've done protocol analytics implementation processing for past orders and pools. That's going to be interesting to see. Looks like the front end, they've updated React from version 16 to 18. Extracted all the core components. Oof, it got blurry.
Can you read it?
Let me see. Extracted all the core components from to a UI kit, separate repo, and added titles to each page for pretty location history. They've added network name to the URL. The core for responsive adaptive UI is done. Looks like the work in progress is going to be the transaction history UI and pending transaction on both sides. Responsive and adaptive mobile design, plus read-only wallets for portfolio tracking is on the way. That's going to be neat to see. I guess if you're somebody that sees changes and wants to act, stay away from the read-only. That's just going to catch you in a trap. But that is actually a really nice tool. Looks like Ergo Pay integration is in motion. Rosen Bridge, they're working on UI integration, research, and development, because obviously bridging to Cardano, ErgoDex is a natural ally since they have a foot on both chains. And it looks like the Spectrum network research and development is ongoing, which is a pretty big next generation step for them based on everything I've read. So I'm excited to see where that goes.
Yeah, it's huge. Another big update. I've had quite a few this week. I like Louis' comment underneath here as well. How much would you charge to format and add the icons throughout? So yeah, Louis, reach out to Yasha. And moving on, we've got an Excel update from Chris. So Keith worked on just writing up some design system and documentation. LGD finished the API routes for SLE, SLT, and created a gate controller to manage the SLE, SLT API requests. On the front end, they're still refactoring and working on a new design and layout for the loan creation, loan lists, and some more views. Still separating out some stateful components and layout components for the forms. And then Chris on the social side, the borrower community has a solid foundation with 5 proposals. So if you want to check that out, I think you can jump into their socials, Telegram, even just reach out to Chris on Twitter. And then exploring options to build out the lender community so that users can easily pool funds. That's nice as well, to contribute without reviewing all the loans that come available. And then on the Deco side, just setting up a summer exercise that will utilize Deco's material and resources to provide interested community members with a bootcamp learning process. That's awesome. So keep things ticking over from the education side. Just expecting that first one to be a largely ambitious exploration, of onboarding new devs to the ecosystem. I love what they're doing. It's pretty broad and very beneficial to the ecosystem.
Yeah, I think in terms of like DeFi outside of the kind of token trading, Chris is certainly putting something quite interesting together. Pooling funds and having kind of like trusted communities and having the ability to fund multiple parties really is a pretty cool community tool. I'm gonna have to look into that, and I think I want to support it.
Yeah, and the education that they're doing on the ground in Kenya as well. I know Denisio is a stake pool operator on Cardano. He's helping out on that front. And then the guys on the ground in Kenya themselves, they're really engaged. So they've got a nice little community going there.
It's great to see.
Yep. That's it.
That's it.
So that's another big weekly update.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. I know that markets aren't the greatest, and EIP-27 probably came out in terms of like the macro trend, not the greatest time, but things will adapt. So, those of you that are out there mining, hopefully you can cover your costs. If not, you're always welcome to hop onto a more profitable chain. And really, I hope we see you back once things adjust.
Yeah, obviously everyone has their costs associated with mining, and hopefully we can deliver some more value to increase the price of our token. Obviously the ecosystem, as you can see through this weekly developer update, I think it just keeps growing and growing. I've actually run out of room this week to be able to list the projects on the previous layout, so I think that's a good problem to have.
No, it is a great problem to have. We will have some growing pains with the let's just say profitability reset, but in terms of the development, I see it accelerating, and it's just exciting to watch. Things have grown beyond my ability to track. That's been the case for a couple months now, which is really nice to see. Over time, I hope to become less and less important, and ultimately the community, projects in the community deliver a lot more value, news, marketing material, attract users, and they just build on everything that the Ergo Foundation is putting together in the core.
Yeah, just touch on the community side of things as well. We're seeing a lot of video content come out. We've also seen some articles as well. So starting to see some momentum on that side. It's great.
That's ultimately the path forward. So it's a real pleasure to represent the Ergo ecosystem.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks once again for tuning in for another weekly developer update. We'll catch you next week. Have a good one.
Be well.